You asked for 'em, we got 'em. Also, once again, Bob and Joe, go a toe to toe. You'll hear all that and more on the Outdated Wrestling Hour, brought to you by Diet Cola. That's Diet Cola. Remember our motto, the shit's not good for you. Hey, shut that TV off and listen to the podcast. What are you, multitasking? What's wrong with you out there? Hey, everybody, it's Bob Smith. You might remember me from Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine and a host of other wrestling magazines like WCW, and I wrote for WOW for a little bit, and for Sandy Krebs at Wrestling's Main Event. I did it all in the 80s and 90s, but today I'm the host of the Outdated Wrestling Hour, nostalgia with a twist. And speaking of twists, you should see this guy dance. It's our co-host, Joe Puccio. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great, Bob. Come on, you weren't supposed to let the listeners know about this little dance routine we do before we get on the air, but that's all right. The cat's out of the bag. It's okay.
Folks, that was a complete and utter lie. I just want to get a rise out of Joe. I knew his face would turn red, and it's fun watching him turn colors, I have to tell you. It's part of the fun of doing these podcasts. We're having a TV-oriented show this time, but it's all nostalgia because our guest is Daniel Archambeault-May, and he is the proprietor of the Ultimate Classic Wrestling Network, known by some as the Save Mar Wrestling Collection, owned by Mario Savoldi. And it is an amazing app that you can load to your Roku box or watch it on your tablet or your phone. And it is a subscription service, but it's got everything. And we'll get into all that once Daniel's on the show later. But first of all, if you're an old-timer like me and not so old-timer like Joe here, one of my favorite avocations is to go on YouTube, look around other places where you can find old videos posted and look for wrestling. And it's amazing the old wrestling you can find. You can't find everything, but you can find a lot. And it is kind of a golden era for going back in time. Joe, do you ever say, I don't want to watch The Miz tonight. I want to watch Rufus R. Freight Train Jones. Do you ever get that vibe and just go on YouTube and look for something different?
I do. I have a habit of doing it, unfortunately, while I'm working sometimes during the day. You know, if I'm kind of in the middle of something, I might just on my other screen just pull something up and just kind of watch it in the background. So that's probably not recommended, but I do it that way. And a lot of times it's just whatever just comes into my head. You know, I'll just thinking about, I feel like watching the that Sergeant Slaughter, Pat Patterson street fight from years ago, and from the Garden, and I'll just pull that up and watch it, and bring back memories. So it really depends. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, YouTube has just a plethora of stuff. I mean, once you go to YouTube and you just start going from match to match, you could literally do this for 3-4 hours, easily.
I will say that my favorite type of wrestling shows from the old days is when somebody will post one and it's got all the local commercials left in, like you don't see skips. You'll see a commercial for somebody's Ford dealership or someplace to get barbecue or something. I love that. And I love the ones from here in the East Coast where we talked about before, the Carvel commercials, the commercials for any local thing. Oh, Lenny's Clam Bar, those are the best back in the day.
Absolutely. I love that. It's so funny you mentioned that. Literally last night, I was talking about the old Carvel commercials with my wife, Marilyn, with my sister and her husband. And we were just reminiscing about how we missed that stuff,
One of my favorite stand-up comedians, Pat Oswalt, does a hilarious bit about Tom Galvell and his cake depicting the Kennedy assassination. It sounds tasteless, and it is, but it's laugh out loud funny. little marzipan FBI agents are coming on, but just the whole 9 yards. It's just so silly and stupid, but I like it. Anyway, yeah, Carvel are the best, man. We talked about Carvel cake before. We should see if we can get Carvel as a sponsor since we love it so much.
And let me just say, I mean, again, I didn't plan this, but being that we just brought up Carvel on one of the old episodes, we talked about how I had my first Fudgy the Whale in
That's
my
right.
40s. You know, as we taped this last night, I tried my first cookie puss. I am not kidding, Bob. I am not kidding.
I am floored. How did this? All right, you got to look. Since we did talk about it a couple weeks ago, how did this happen? I mean,
Okay.
serious. Did somebody just bring one over or something?
Yes. You know, basically what happened was we had an impromptu gathering at my home last night with my sister Victoria and her husband Rob, my brother-in-law Mark and his wife Sandy and my wife Marilyn. We all, you know, it was the six of us. We had dinner together, and my sister and Rob, they brought over a Carvel cake. And lo and behold, you know, they're like, oh, put this in the freezer. I'm putting it in the freezer, and it's a cookie puss. And the reason why they brought it over again, and this kind of brings back what we talked about in the previous episode, is that we had talked about this, that I had never had one throughout my whole childhood for whatever reason. I had tons of ice cream cake, tons of Carvel cakes, but never the actual cookie puss that they used to advertise on these Tom Carvel commercials. So yeah, I can finally say that I've had a Fudgy and a cookie puss.
Big question. Did people fight over the nose?
It's so
right, funny. The nose is a cone, right?
The cone. Yeah. And I didn't know that until yesterday. Yeah. But I saw the cone, and it was sort of like the last thing that was still sitting there.
Wait a minute. Hold on. In my entire life, I've never seen anybody demolish an entire Carvel cake. Do you mean to tell me that six of you practically finished the thing? Really?
We did.
Oh my gosh.
I know, we did. I mean, and for the most part, you know, there was parts of it that were kind of, it was out for a while. So some of it was melting. It was fairly warm yesterday. So, but that was still there. And we were all kind of finishing up. And my brother-in-law just said, is anyone going to eat the nose? And nobody wanted it. We were all full, and he picked it up, grabbed it. So he got the nose, which again, I had no idea that the nose was a cone until yesterday. But I will say, now having both a Fudgy and a cookie puss, I prefer the cookie puss.
The cookie puss, yeah.
Yeah, that's my vote.
Fudgy is 2-in flavor.
Yeah, I'm not big into
Fudgy is primarily chocolate flavored.
Yeah,
if you like that, that's for you.
Right.
But I like the like I say, of the three cakes that are most famous, I personally would go with the regular Carvel cake, the kind of vanilla looking cake, but once you cut inside, it's two flavors, and there's the crunchies, and like we say, you let it out to temper, and then the frosting gets soft, but the ice cream stays hard. And when you get it at the exact moment, it's sublime. Oh my God. An Italian meal followed by a Carvel cake.
Oof.
Lord have mercy, baby.
I agree. I agree with you there. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's the best. It is. We are so lucky to be Americans and have our Carvel. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not even being facetious. I just love it. All right, but anyway, back to videos. But yeah, the ones that leave in all the commercials, all the local flavor. Like I used to watch this, the Joe Puccio tapes, right? Yeah. And I could see all the local. There was a furniture salesman called the Wolfman of all things, or his nickname was the Wolfman because he had big bushy hair and a beard. And you'd see those furniture commercials, and you'd see local sponsors. Local indie wrestling tends to have sponsors, so the sponsors would be part of that. I remember even Bruiser Bedlam, the WWE in Indianapolis, got a big sponsor. They got the local. We're going back to the 80s, the local Miller Beer distributorship put money into the wrestling show. And it showed. You could see a difference in the show from before and after they got the extra money coming in. Again, I just watched one. Our friend Dave Dynasty, who does the Wrestling Nostalgia podcast here on the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, which is great, by the way. But just as great is the way he is constantly putting out Bruiser Bedlam tapes from the 1980s. And he just put out, fans, another 6 or 8 of them that have never been shown, beautifully transferred digitally, so they look like they're brand new shows.
Oh,
fantastic! And I saw one of them from about '88, and the crowd was so big. The more I think about it, and I'll beat this horse until it's, I'll keep talking about this. The WWE in Indianapolis and surrounding areas, even in its waning years, was drawing people like I couldn't believe. Nobody was drawn in between 84 and 88. It was just WWE at that point. I mean, even NWA would come into Philadelphia and draw 800 people. I am telling you, it's the big unknown. My wrestling magazine cover, I'll be the first to admit it. Nobody else looked at it anywhere else in wrestling media. Even the Observer never talked that much about it. So I am telling you, they did a fantastic job. And the matches, I mean, the Great Wall Jump versus Scott Steiner, great stuff. I mean, really hard-hitting, good action, a great heel of Dr. Jerry Graham Jr. Some of the others were, not quite ready for prime time out lower on the card. But overall, it's the most fun you'll have looking at wrestling shows that you've never even thought of looking at. Again, Bruiser Bedlam from the 80s. Seek it out on YouTube. And here's the best part. It's free anytime you want to look.
Yeah, I got to check that out. That's interesting because you're right. That really wasn't reported on. I mean,
no.
If you hadn't really mentioned this, I would never have known that it was so over or that the fans were so, crazed.
One of the arenas they taped in was called the Hotel Sofitel. I don't know what that means. That was just the name of but they had a giant ballroom and it looked beautiful on television. And the heat coming out of that arena, I am telling you, it was legit.
And this was
this was old school chic heat from the mid 70s in the mid 80s.
And this was the mid 80s. Okay.
Yeah. Mid or late 80s.
Wow. Yeah.
Just an astounding job out of it involved. My friend Terry Sullivan was the announcer. Tremendous. Chris Carter, who we've had on the show, was doing wraparounds in the studio as a heel. Just turned from a baby face. He was the whitest bread baby face you ever saw. Turned into a vicious heel. It was just everything worked between, I'd say, 85 and 88.
Yeah.
Then, of course, things slowed down because all the territories died eventually. Yep. But like Dr. Jerry Graham, who was kind of like the money man there, everybody left. All the promoters, the team of promoters, all left with a big bag of money. They didn't go broke. Everybody thinks, they went out of business because they went broke. No, they were a success every step of the way. I'm not saying they were NWA or WWE successful, but they were regional successful, like Memphis. So I don't know what to say other than it's the great secret of pro wrestling in the 1980s. I don't care what anybody says. I've seen the tapes. I've talked to the people. I know what the story is.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I got to check those tapes out. Just going back a few minutes to what you were saying about the local flavor and the local commercials and loving watching all that stuff on these old clips. I agree 100%. I basically recorded everything in the mid 80s. Once I got, and we've talked about this, how getting our first VCRs. I know you said you broke the bank, getting your first VCR in the past.
Idiot.
I think I probably got it. Yeah, I think I got mine a little bit after yours.
Do you know how much $1,000 was in 1979? I mean, come on. I was an idiot. I was that much of a fan. I bought it, I swear, to tape the Bruno Sammartino, Larry Zbyszko feud. There was no other consideration. I needed to preserve it. I saw the build, and the build was magic. I knew something big was going to happen, and it did.
Well, it goes to show you, I mean, whether or not the reasoning for getting the VCR for wrestling purposes, but I mean, it goes to show you back then, I mean, that was a huge technology. I mean, that was crazy. I mean, nowadays we poke fun at it, how archaic it is, taping stuff with an old school VCR. But at that time, I mean, that was revolutionary to have something like that where you can actually watch. You didn't have to go to the movies to watch a movie. You can actually watch it in your own home. You could actually record things off the television and then watch it later. That was really big.
I had a part-time job in a movie theater for a while in the, I'd say late 70s. And the proprietor of the movie theater was an independent cinema, said, they're going to put us out of business. He really thought the VHS tape machine was going to put everybody out of business.
Right.
Because you could go rent a tape without going to movies and buying the popcorn and heading out of your house and watch everything at home. Oddly enough, it didn't ruin the movie business. For whatever reason, it still hasn't, even with streaming and everything, the movies are the movies. They're always going to be the movies. It's just it's different when it's communal. Oh, speaking of that, this is off topic. Queen of the Ring. I wanted to see Queen of the Ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it came out 3 weeks ago as we taped this.
Yep.
We're into the third week. In this area, it's out of the theaters already. I checked Fandango and it said, no local showtimes, no streaming. Did somebody drop a ball somewhere?
I know what you're saying because I did the same thing. I'd say about a week ago, coincidentally, I looked it up on, I think on the local AMC theaters here, and I couldn't find it anywhere. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know if it was a limited release or what, if it was only intended to be for a few weeks, but I know it's virtually vanished from theaters.
No, it's gone from, we're talking the New York City, Long Island, area here, folks, as we
Right.
speak, where we both live here. And I'll say this, even during its first weekend, it was out of the way for me.
Yeah.
It was out of the way, longest part of Queens. It was in the longest part of Long Island. It wasn't at, let's say, the popular theaters like the
Right.
Raceway in Westbury. It was none of those theaters.
Mhm.
So it had really, really spotty distribution. If it's out of theaters already, I am totally confused as to what they're doing because it's a good film from everything I understand. Every wrestling person I know that's seen it loved it.
Yeah, I really wanted to see it. Had a good cast, had some wrestling cameos in there. And I don't know what the deal is. I would imagine it's going to be available
Oh, yeah.
shortly on some type of streaming service. I
Mhm.
mean, maybe Amazon, maybe Netflix. I don't know, but I really hope so because you're right. That was really, really, suspect.
Well, it was sort of an indie film, right? Now,
Mhm.
here's the deal. A lot of indie films come out both ways simultaneously. Have you noticed that? They'll be in the theaters
Yep.
and streaming. So you
Sometime,
can
yeah.
choose how you want to see it. I think they dropped the ball in not distributing it that way from the get go. There's enough
Yeah.
wrestling fans out there that I think would want to see this film.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't understand it either. I'm probably I don't know if you say in the minority, but I'm at this point in my life, I would actually prefer to see it, sh- whether it's streaming or on a service of something where I can watch it at home just for convenience, rather than have to go to the theater. But I mean, I know there's two ways of looking at that. Some people, like you said, like the communal aspect of it. They like seeing with other people. Me, I think I'm okay. I'm at a point
Well,
where I'd rather just watch it alone.
I went to see the Von Erich film, The Iron Claw, when it came out in the Westbury Raceway 12, which is
Yep.
still my favorite cinema.
Yes.
And I went because I was afraid it wasn't going to be there very long, to be honest with you. It actually did a lot better as a film than I thought it would in terms of box office. So I went quick because I thought, but and I went like at a daytime showing, so it was like, easier to get tickets for.
Hmm.
I'll tell you what, I mean, it wasn't packed, but there's enough people there that I would say I was surprised for the Von Erichs. So this, I thought, had kind of a universal appeal. The first rise of actual women's professional wrestling. I don't know if these things were intentional or not. I looked the thing up. I think the thing has only made $800,000 domestically, which is like a drop in the bucket compared to what the major blockbusters make. So it doesn't matter that people didn't go. From what I understand, it doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the movie, the acting, the wrestling parts, the whole 9 yards. I definitely want to see it. I really want to see it. So I don't know what to say. Anyway, we're off topic. There's something else to watch, folks. Queen of the Ring. Hope it comes to streaming soon because we really want to see that, right, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I really wanted to see it. Unfortunately, it just didn't give us much of a chance. I mean, like you said, it was out a couple weeks, and I think we just assume when a movie comes out, you have a few weeks before it's going to leave the theaters. In this case, that just unfortunately, it wasn't the case. But like I said, I'm imagining that there has to be something in the works. I'm sure they're going to put it on some type of service fairly soon.
I mean, I even went to the website for the film and it said nothing.
It
Didn't
didn't
say a
even
word
give
about
it. Yeah.
anything at this point. So I don't know what to say. So anyway, back to video. Back to video you can all go watch. And we talked about Dave Dynasty's amazing. Look him up. It's nostalgic Dave Dynasty on YouTube. Find all the stuff that he's done. There's another gentleman named Chris P. Lettuce. That's the name he goes by. And he has a section on YouTube called Armstrong Alley. It is unbelievable with a capital UN. It's got everything. Any minor little federations of big classic stuff to Japan, to other countries, to the north, the south, the east, the west, Canada, Pennsylvania, you name it. He's got so much stuff. He deserves an Emmy Award. And I hope he has one of those little plaques they give YouTube proprietors. You know what I'm talking about? You ever see somebody that has a YouTube show, Joe, and in the back you will see the YouTube logo on a plaque? That is an
Okay.
award given by YouTube to content creators for having very, very popular shows.
Okay. No, I'm not familiar with that, honestly. Okay.
Watch anybody who talks on YouTube and see if you see a logo, gray metallic plaque behind them somewhere. That's the award given by YouTube itself for having like 1 million streams or something.
Oh wow. Okay. Got it. Got it.
But if Chris P doesn't have 1 million streams, I don't know who should, because my gosh, look him up. It's called Armstrong Alley, his area on YouTube. Phenomenal selection. I mean, off the rails selection of things. I mean, even some more current things. Absolutely unbelievable. Unbelievable. If you could think of it, type in type in Rufus R. Freight Train Jones, right? And I guarantee you will find one of his matches somewhere on Armstrong Alley. It's incredible.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I mean, you could find. I'm sure there's so many hidden gems in there. It makes you wonder how they, how they amass this.
These people are my wrestling heroes in my old
Yeah.
age. Between guys like Chris Villades and Dave Dynasty, and you and Facebook, people like Brett Williams on down the line who post old newspaper accounts of wrestling cards and the ads for them. The
Mhm.
cards coming up.
Yeah.
Dave
Yeah.
Brzezinski does it too. God bless all of them. They're doing it just for the fun of it. They're not making any money on this stuff. They're doing it to kibitz with old wrestling fans. Are you kidding me? It's the best. It's the absolute best. So hats off to all you people out there who are helping the memory of classic wrestling stay alive. Because I'll tell you what, it's a stone gas going on Facebook. And do you ever read? Do you ever go down your list on YouTube and you see out of nowhere there's an ad for the Garden from 1971 or an ad from Florida from 1975. It's the best.
That brings back memories of, remember being in the New York, both of us being in the New York area growing up, where after a big WWF card, or actually any card, any house show that they ran in the Garden. Do you remember how the New York Daily News would every day
Yes.
put
Yes.
the results in the sports section where the
Mhm.
box scores were? So it's
Yeah.
like on one page that you'd have the let's say the baseball standings, and then on the next page, amongst all the box scores, you would have WWF results from last night at the Garden, and it would literally just give you all the results. And I would wait for that. I mean, I was
Me
reading the
too.
newspaper at an early age anyway. I love newspapers. But when I knew, and again, this was in a different era, so it wasn't like you had access to the results right away where we do now. So I would wait for the next day and I would
Mhm.
get that daily news and I look at it and I'm like, oh wow, this is so cool. I'd love to see those old ads. I'd love to see somebody, sort of reprint those and online.
But I have to play devil's advocate. It was never featured on those ad pages. It was hidden somewhere. It was wherever they didn't have room for something else. That's where they put the wrestling. That's true.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They
I
didn't
mean, it
feature
wasn't
it. This was not a feature. This was a
no
box.
a
As
little box,
if they had tennis at Nassau Coliseum or something, it would be the same size box, the
right?
smaller stuff. But
Right.
that was the beauty of the Daily News. They covered everything. And they didn't cover it in a snarky way like Warner Wolf on Channel 7, who used to do the wrestling results and little tape clips with circus music in the background. Warner Wolf, clown. That's all I
Yeah,
have to say. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I was never a fan, self-aggrandizing. Warner Wolf was one of the starts of the erosion of TV sportscasting. I'll put it that way. Then you got John Sterling and all these other self-aggrandizing, me first, egocentric, non-storytelling buffoons. Can I get any clearer?
How do you really feel?
Yeah, right, right.
No, I get what you're saying. He was sort of one of the first sportscasters to kind of like it seemed like his main goal was really to get himself over.
Get himself over.
It was
Yeah,
like, it
it
was
wasn't to
almost,
promote pro wrestling. It was just to make fun of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And even with his regular reports, even when he was doing baseball, football, it was always, to sort of like, give a special call that he had to give or something to really, put the focus on him rather than what he was
Exactly.
describing.
There was one clip he showed. I remember it was Pat Patterson had, I think, 4 matches against Backlund at the Garden. And this one was a steel cage match. And they're at the top of the cage, beating each other with brass knuckles, bleeding. And you hear da 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 in the background.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't even say what I want to say.
Yeah. Almost like
Can't
Benny
say
Hill
what I want to
music.
say. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Benny Hill music behind the wrestling.
Yeah.
Get out of town. God rest his soul, but get out of town, man.
You
I
know
got
who
no
did,
use for
since
that.
we're talking about this, who did on the flip side, who really treated it with respect and he had his own show back in the day, was
George
George
Michael.
Michael.
Right.
Exactly. George
Yeah.
Michael. He had the sports machine, and that guy, I have to say, I give him credit. He covered everything. He covered all sports, but he covered wrestling as a legitimate sport. I remember he did features on Ric Flair. He did features on the NWA. And he covered it as if it was as legitimate as Major League Baseball. And I always appreciated that. I always thought, not only in that aspect, but I just think in general, he was a really good sports guy.
I hope my memory isn't fading, but I believe there was an episode where he either interviewed or presented an interview with Ric Flair,
Yeah.
as I
Yeah. Yeah.
recall.
No, you're right. Yeah, he did.
And it was great. It was great. He handled everything like it was a sport, and I got to give him all the credit for that. Before we go about talking about videos, there's one I just watched last night that I've seen a couple of times. You have to see to believe. It's from 1975 in Japan, where NWA champion Jack Briscoe takes on Bobo Brazil.
Hmm.
Why would you want to watch this? It's Bobo Brazil as a heel.
Ah.
seconded by Rufus R. Freight Train Jones, come to think of it. And at the beginning of the thing, you remember they used to give like the wrestlers flowers in Japan?
Yeah.
He's in the ring, right? And he starts eating the flowers. Bubba's eating the flowers. So he wrestled. It was the best of 3 falls match. And in the whole first part, he's got like dangling flower pieces hanging out of his mouth and drooling. And I'm like, Bobo. I never even imagined him as a villain, but there he was. And you know what? Another thing about this match, you don't hear the crowd react to anything. Nothing. A lot of Japanese fans in that era looked at wrestling like they were at the opera.
Yeah.
They were serious about it. They would sit very politely and really watch what was going on. You get a rise out of them, especially like when Abdullah was in town and stuff like that. But they didn't react like American fans do.
It's culturally very different. I mean, I think it's even sort of the same now. It's obviously different in that I'm sure now they're a little bit more vocal, but I think in general it's the same. It's just the cultures are different. I've heard so many wrestlers over the years talk about that where they actually appreciated it, because I think in Japan it's just more of they look at it a little bit more in a respectful way, where they're going to clap, rather than catcall or boo or cheer. They're going to clap when they see something they like, So I just think it's a cultural thing. It's different. It's
totally different.
I would love to see it. That's one of my goals. I really want to make a trip to Japan. Obviously not just for wrestling, but I mean, I would love to see Japan. But while I'm there, of course, I would love to, go to the Tokyo Dome or something like that and just experience it.
Unlike the United States, wrestling was prominently featured on Japanese newspaper covers and whole sections inside.
Yeah.
They don't do that here. They've never done it, never will. So I don't know what to say other than that's why I'm glad I'm nostalgic, because we can look back at all this cool stuff. Joe, great having you back. We'll see you on the next episode. And let's not forget about GenerationXWire.com. You got any cool stuff coming up there?
Yeah, we just did. We're actually going to be doing a Barry Horowitz feature very, very shortly. Barry has a new book out, so I talked to Barry. I'm going to be talking to Barry and doing a review of the book. So that's kind of cool. Non-wrestling related, few things that just came out. Did a feature on the What's Happening cast. Remember the old 1976 sitcom with
I just checked that one out. I just saw that one. That's one you got to see. If you remember What's Happening, this is for you, because I haven't seen anything else like this lately. So get on that one. That's a different one.
It was fun. It was really fun to talk to 3 of those cast members that are around. They're doing the convention circuit next month, so that's why I kind of hooked up with them. So yeah, we got some movie reviews coming out in the works. So JC Correa, one of our writers, just did a nice feature on Brad Whitford as the unsung hero of Aerosmith. Everybody always talks about, Tyler and Perry, Steve Tyler, Joe Perry. Brad Whitford, the other guitarist, doesn't get a lot of talk, so he wanted to write a feature on him, and he did a great job on that. So yeah, again, it's eclectic. There's a lot of different things for everybody. So I hope everybody checks it out.
Brad Whitford, the Bobby Eaton of Aerosmith.
There you go.
Just to make it palatable for wrestling fans.
Exactly.
Joe, thanks again. We're going to take our usual weekly look at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, and we will be right back with Daniel Archambeault-May of the amazing Ultimate Classic Wrestling Network. Don't you go anywhere if you know what's good for you. Well, I reckon it's time to do a little bit of an update for the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Let's see what shows you can enjoy several times every week. They've got a veritable cornucopia of wrestling podcasts, so let's dig into it. Pretty much the flagship of WrestleCopia is the Wrestling Memory Grenade. Join host Ray Russell as he analyzes and discusses years of wrestling history from your favorite promotions. From Hulkamania to Mulkymania, from the Midnight Express to the Lex Express, they've got it all. Tune in and get a big piece of history on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. If you like nostalgia, this one's for you. The Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop. What a legend Bob Roop is, and he welcomes you to the Wrestling Stoop as he shares stories, historical moments, and all kinds of memories from his 20-plus year career as a wrestler and booker. And he got wild near the end of his career. Find out all of it on the Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop. One of the most unique wrestling podcasts anywhere is DG's Puro Wrestling Academy. Join host Dan as he travels back in time to discuss the history of pro wrestling in Japan. He's spent decades studying the world of Japanese pro wrestling, Now he offers up his historian-level knowledge to you. You'll learn something on every single show, I guarantee it. That's DG's Puro Wrestling Academy. The great Gene Jackson hosts the Retro Wrestling Review. That's RE-View. Brings in a variety of co-hosts and wrestling legends to the program as he goes back in time to watch and review pro wrestling from years goes by. Get the breakdown, hear never-before-heard stories, and feel free to watch along with them. It's worth it, let me tell you, especially if you're a USWA fan. Enjoy the Retro Wrestling Review. When this show started not all that long ago, it was called Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert. Now, it's Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich. Two of the great stars from Memphis and beyond. You'll learn all about them, hear great old school stories, stuff you've never heard before, definitely on Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich. One of my personal favorite podcasts out there is Wrestling Nostalgia with Dave Dynasty, a meat and potatoes name for a anything but a meat and potatoes show. Join him as he reminisces about pro wrestling history with a variety of legendary guests and topics. And what I like about him, he knows everything about Dick the Bruiser, Bruiser Bedlam, and the WWA. But that's only part of what you'll hear on Wrestling Nostalgia with Dave Dynasty. It was the WWF versus WCW, Raw versus Nitro, the Monday Night War, the Ratings War, the NWO, the Attitude Era. Now, there's a podcast all about it. It's called Monday Warfare, Raw versus Nitro. They break it down with episode reviews, you name it. If you want to know all about that classic ratings war, listen to Monday Warfare, Raw versus Nitro. One of the most unique podcasts you'll hear anywhere is the Other Ship podcast. It's a pop culture contest with a pro wrestling lean. Join a rotating group of co-hosts as they talk movies, sports, music, TV, food, and of course, pro wrestling. They take on various topics in roundtable discussions, special guest interviews, and other content concepts. As they say, laugh your ass off on this voyage aboard the Other Ship. New episodes are in the bag for the Captain's Corner pod. Join Captain Nick as he presents the Captain's Corner podcast. It features old school wrestling interviews and discussions, plus all the latest goings on in the world of the Captain's adventures. Nothing else quite like the Captain's Corner pod. Also on the WrestleCopia Network, the Glory Days GrappleCon cast. Hosts Barry and Captain Nick present the Glory Days GrappleCon podcast featuring memories and special interviews with wrestling stars of the past and even those of today. There's even more at WrestleCopia, a podcast called TR Shocks the World, the WCNN News, and the Power Hour. It's quite a lineup with more new podcasts joining all the time. It's the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. How do you get involved? It's pretty easy. Go to their constantly updated website, WrestleCopia.com. Click a few buttons and take a voyage into wrestling's past, present, and future. Get it all at WrestleCopia. Long-time listeners, we're into our third year here with this podcast, and all of my listeners ask the same thing. Where do you find old stuff that's good? Where do you find old wrestling matches, old cards, old federations that no longer exist? We're always looking for them. People scour YouTube and stuff like that. Well, just in case you haven't heard about it, I'm going to talk about Ultimate Classic Wrestling, the app, the website, the whole 9 yards. And we have here someone very closely associated with that. His name is Daniel Archambeault-May. How are you?
I'm doing good, Bob. How about you?
Great. Daniel and I met in Albany, New York for last year's International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame induction ceremony and weekend. And we had a wonderful time. Did you have fun at that thing? I thought it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good. You know, I'm a mark, you know what I mean? I don't have like a pedigree in the wrestling business. I'm just, so to see all these people is just great. You know, I'm texting my brother. I'm like, hey, I'm having dinner with Tito Santana, or everyone else there was, it was business as usual for them. But it's just incredible meeting all those people,
Well, it was fun for me because I saw about 6 people I hadn't seen in 35 years or something like that, since I used to, you probably recognize me or maybe my voice from some of the tapes because I was on some IWCCW shows.
Oh yeah.
I think about a dozen in total, mainly because he kept bringing me there to do color commentary, and I did some backstage interviews when Bill Apter couldn't be there, and I think I attended about 4 cards sitting next to Brian Webster.
Oh, he's one
And
of the greats.
he, you know something? I thought he was awesome. Brian, if you're listening, I always thought you were a tremendous announcer, and I don't remember who asked me to do it. It had to have been Mario. I can't think of any other way he would have said, sit down in the booth, 'cause, Mike Mitten was there too.
Right.
And it was like, I just don't remember who asked, but I think it kinda happened organically.
Yeah,
Because Apter and I had attended a couple cards, and I think just what happened, "Oh, there's Bob. Bob, why don't you sit down?" And, it was just that simple. I think it helped give the IWCCW at that point a little credibility because we put the Pro Wrestling Illustrated banner up during interview segments
Yeah,
and stuff
absolutely.
like that. So I think it was good for everybody involved.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like you said, Bill Apter being there and everything gave a ton of credibility, I think, PWIs worldwide. And I know there is a lot of Pro Wrestling Illustrated commercials that pop up on the tapes, like the ones that are baked in. So I'm sure there was some swap going on above everyone else's heads.
I would imagine it's all just a handshake, thank you very much thing back then.
For sure.
I don't think there was any business agreement. I just think it was like, if you come on and do some interviews, we'll put a banner or a bumper up or something like that. And it, like I said, I think it helped everybody involved. And I want to say one thing about Mario Savoldi's promotional style, at least when I was involved with it. It was unique in that it had the flavor. They were, I guess, recording in Hamburg at that point.
Right.
Or I can't remember if it was Allentown or Hamburg, but I think it was Hamburg. My memory is not what it used to be. It was the famous, he still had Joe McHugh as the ring announcer, just like Vince had. It was the same building. But I want to say this. Mario's cards from probably 87 on, and I think I consider this a compliment, were the most family-friendly wrestling of that time period I could think of. You could bring your kids to this thing.
Yeah, I mean,
They weren't overly violent. There was no bad language. They had superstars that probably everybody knew, like Greg Valentine, and Tony Atlas was the champ at that point, and other people coming in and out. But I just thought they did a great job making it a palatable, old-school wrestling feel that everybody could enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, as I got all these lessons secondhand from Mario, but he explained Angelo was always very big on, you got to have something for the children because parents really don't come on their own. But you got the kids, you got the parents. So as long as there's something child friendly on the show, that's your bread and butter. That was one of the lessons Mario taught me and Angelo taught him.
Mm-hmm. Which accounts for things like Curly Mo, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
Nice guy. I thought he was a really sweetheart of a guy.
The first time I was ever in a wrestling ring was with Super Duper Mario. He used to invite the children in after he won to dance with them a la Junkyard Dog.
That's right. Super Duper Mario.
Yeah, Rusty Brooks, the great Rusty Brooks.
Right. Holy smokes. Well, anyway, so let's cut to today. What are you guys up? Just lay it on it, because I really don't know. Like I said, I saw you with your amazing DVD collection in Albany, and then I went home and I do subscribe to the network now. And I'm just, there's so much going on. Just give me the cook story about everything. Anything you want to talk about, please do.
Sure. I'll kind of start from zero on what we have. I'm just going to assume not everyone's a Savoldi family expert. The family, beginning with Angelo. So they had their family's tapes, the International Wrestling, ICW, IWCCW, Mario's IWA Puerto Rico was Victor Quinones. I believe some point in their late 90s, early 2000s, they bought Max Andrews' library, which was the USWA Dallas, Global, Post 88, World Class, all sorts of things like that. So they amassed this giant library of wrestling footage, up to 5,000 hours, I believe was our last count. And it, aside from some kind of Walmart style DVDs, they weren't really doing much. Enter Mike Shields, AWA Jerry Jarrett production wizard Mike Shields. He had gotten with Mario about, starting to stream some of this stuff, because Mike Shields, even at his age, he still had his, finger on the pulse of everything. He saw where everything was going. So we started a streaming channel. So we had that. And then when Mike passed, I was kind of the only guy Mario knew that could and would edit. I got Mike's job, which I wasn't fit to do because he's the great Mike Shields. But anyway, so at that point, it was kind of me and Mario. And my goal was to get everything that Vince didn't buy left under one roof. So we started just bugging people. So we've since added the Central States Wrestling Library out of Kansas, Dennis Coralluzzo's tapes. We just made a deal with Dave Parsons through Barry Owens, vice versa, on the Portland Wrestling Library. Todd Okerlund, Mean Gene's son, he had Herb Abrams' UWF in Pedro Martinez library, which is all that great territory footage like Detroit, ICW Poffo, Southwest.
Yeah, I made a list of it myself. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys touch on so many, like South Atlantic, which is something very few people have seen.
Oh, for sure.
Central States. So you have something called, you have Goulis Welch stuff. I have never seen Goulis Welch stuff anywhere else.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is that's actually one of Todd Okerlund's tapes. We had a fair amount of it, but when we looked at it, we're like, this kind of sucks. So Todd sold out all to Dave Parsons at Wrestling Legends Network, most of it anyway. So if you want your fill of Goulis Welch, check out Wrestling Legends Network. They're good friends of ours. Business is very incestuous as far as footage goes. Joe Dombrowski's Pro Wrestling Library, we do a lot of business with, and there's only a certain amount of people that'll spend $1 on classic wrestling. So we all do our best to get in front of y'all.
Well, you have other stuff that I think people like Bob Loose content. I mean, that stuff is just out there. Bob was out there, the shy retiring Bob Loose. I mean, it's just amazing footage you guys have.
Oh, I forgot to mention Robert Wormez. He did some business with Bob Loose in kind of the later years, 86, 87. They had a show called Monsters of the Mat, which was Bob Loose hosting whatever Bob Loose had, random WWA tapes and things like that, but with the most bonkers public access television trauma movie nonsense going around in the background. Loose was a madman.
He was for years before that. It just the wildest stuff. And I think it got wilder as the budgets got cheaper. If you catch my drift, I mean, he was just doing anything to stay going, I guess. And it's just a great part of wrestling history. A lot of people forgot. I also noticed some of that East Coast down at Danucci stuff you guys have. I forget what he called it, but like Bruno and Mike Mittman were doing commentary.
Oh yeah, that
stuff is really rare.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's 11 or 12 episodes of that in total. Fortunately, that kind of died out before the blow off of everything that series was working on was going to be Bruno versus Larry rematch. And as it hit Apex, Bruno went back to Vince. So they were just kind of left with nothing to do, turned into Mario's ICW.
It kind of reminded me, that show, of the old New York / Pittsburgh Bruno thing. Because Bruno promoted Pittsburgh for a long time.
Oh yeah,
and it to me that was the last vestige of like a side gig type of thing. With Dominic is concerned, and it was interesting. They had some good talent. They had the Valiants and Bruno Sammartino Jr. who was billed, and Zbyszko came in, and of course Danucci was on top. I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, you could see they were just starting out, but by the time they got their feet moving, I think it was over, like you said.
Yeah, it wasn't around very long as far as I can tell. Yeah, it was a lot of, Bruno was a big integral part of that, so he brought his crew with him. So, Mike Mittman on the call, that was a Bruno thing, because, Mike Mitten's your timekeeper at the bell from the
all those years.
Yeah.
That's right. Joe McHugh and Guy Galante. There's the great lost name that I have to find out more about. The guy who was the director of all those old WWF shows, Guy Galante. Who was he? Is he still with us? I have no idea. I've looked him up and I saw he did some Pennsylvania video projects and, TV projects, but there's not a lot known about him. Of all the people in WWF history, he may be the most secret because his name appeared at the end of every show, and then he wasn't around anymore when they expanded, and that was it. And nobody even brings him up. And I'm like, he was the guy who was the director of most of the classic WWF matches. So I don't know what to say other than I'd like to know more about him.
Yeah, that might be a Mike Mittman question. No, knowing him, he's probably, I talked to him last Sunday. He came over for whatever.
Yeah. Entirely possible.
Yeah. Mike Mittman, he's a great guy as well.
So, yeah, he is a great guy. I loved his announcer voice, too.
My favorite thing is that's his regular voice.
That's his real voice. Yeah, he's not.
First time I called him, I was very shocked because he sounds like Tony the Tiger. And usually when you call someone, they got their TV voice and their regular voice. But it's like, hi, Daniel, this is Mike Mittman returning your call. And it's just very,
Yeah. Yeah, and Brian Webster was great to me, very accommodating, and doesn't get enough play when talking about the announcers of the late '80s, early '90s. I think he did a tremendous job, and I'm shocked he didn't link up with someone else. I really am. He was that good.
oh, that's one of the biggest crimes in wrestling history, I think. Brian I'd put him maybe even over Solely any day. The problem is no one gets to hear what he can do, because calling a Curly Mo match is a lot different than, no disrespect to Curly Mo. I love it. But we have some stuff of him calling like Harley versus Flair at the Meadowlands. And it's one of the greatest, announcer performances of all time. But again, people know him as, oh, he's calling this, Mondo Clean versus whatever.
Yeah.
And
I mean, when I was there, they were integrating some local talent into the, what they were putting out. They'd have, Greg Valentine and Tony Atlas and a few names known on top. Brooklyn Brawler, they'd bring in, whoever was available. But then they were bringing in local talent like Mark Mast and that whole crew out of Pennsylvania. And they were really hungry kids. I mean, they really wanted to do a good show, and a lot of them did. But again, he had to call that.
right.
And there's probably not a lot of background on them. And how do you project enough about them unless you hung out in the locker room with them for an hour and took notes? It's
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
who were they?
Yeah, no, I'm honestly shocked they at least didn't get a call from WCW or something.
Yeah, me too.
So good. So good.
Well, now, you know what? Thanks to your network, people can hear him now and find out just exactly how good he was, because he was tremendous.
Oh,
He really was. By any standard, I thought he was an excellent wrestling announcer.
Oh, absolutely. And he's still great. I'll call him right now and, Brian, I need a promo for this. And he'll, bang it out in his underwear into his iPhone. And it's still fantastic. He's still Brian Webster,
So are you the coordinator of the Ultimate Classic Wrestling website and all that other stuff? What's your role?
Most everything. The whole show is me and Mario.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, anything that needs a computer falls on me. Mario's still very involved with, any business dealings and things like that. Really, as far as all the editing, uploading, running Facebook, all that stuff. It's just me. I need an intern if anyone wants to be one. But
Oh, don't say that to my audience. You're going to get 1,000 emails.
yeah, we don't pay, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's what an intern is, right?
Yeah.
I'm impressed with the app and the website. I think it's like a treasure trove. Click a few buttons and you go back 30, 40 years. I mean, it's really what veteran fans are basically my audience.
Right.
That's what they're looking for. They're looking for as much of the old stuff as they can, because they don't seem to enjoy the new stuff as much as the old stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I have no hatred for anything new, but it's just not what I like. It's, it's like Mad Magazine or punk rock. It was only good when you liked it. Anything after was,
Oh, I love Mad Magazine. But no, in all seriousness, no, I keep my eyes on the new product. I just, why? I got paid to cover it for years. Once you're into the groove, you never look away from it entirely.
Oh, no, you gotta.
It's like one thing I have kind of given up on is pop music. I don't know one artist from another anymore, and I was a musician too, and I just don't pay attention to it anymore. It's just everybody who got older goes, "It was better back in my day," and
Right.
that's what they're all going to say. It's
Yeah.
just the way of the world. Now that I'm the age I am, I understand what my dad was talking about, because he grew up in the big bands. So what can I tell you?
Right. No, it's just everyone thinks their generation's the best, and that's, fine. I'm guilty of the same.
Absolutely. It's just human nature. It's funny. The stuff you love as a teenager and a young adult will stick with you the rest of your life. It's just the way it goes. It'll always be your favorite, no matter who comes along later.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
for instance, the IWA on the Ultimate Classic Network, the one with Jack Reynolds and Tex McKenzie on the color.
Oh, okay.
I am telling you, I was around when those shows were new. We were in high school. We used to meet at the local bowling alley bar. Me and about 3 or 4 other friends. And we would watch. It was on at midnight on Channel 9 here in New York. And we loved that show. It was an alternative to the WWF at that point. And they had a lot of stars like Mighty Igor and Ivan Koloff and, Tex McKenzie.
Yeah,
just
Cologne
keep going down the
there.
list. Mil Mascaras, they were promoted as their champion. And on down. And it was like a mix of people you'd heard about through the wrestling magazines, but never got a chance to see here in the East. And we loved it. And they even did shows at the Beacon Theater in New York City and Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey.
Mario has a great story of, I wish I was here to do it justice, or he was here rather, but I guess when they ran Roosevelt, Vince Sr. had paid Mario to corral a bunch of goons and allegedly flatten some tires and then tell people their tires were being flattened. So the show emptied out and didn't have a good crowd.
That, I've heard rumors of that one myself. I didn't know whether to believe it or not, but is this true? Did that really happen?
Allegedly, as it was told to me, yes. I know George Steele mentioned it in his book too, which is what got me to bug Mario on it. But on that IWA, we are actually, I think it's due out the 24th, but don't quote me on it. But we have a IWA 50th anniversary special coming. 3 volumes. I want to say it's like right around 9 hours. But all Eddie Ihorn's IWA. That'll also be on DVD through Joe Dombrowski's Pro Wrestling Library.
Question. The
Yes, sir.
IWA, I guess it was on about a year in New York. Maybe a little longer, maybe a little less than I just don't remember. But I do know that once Einhorn cut the plug on it, that Johnny Powers and some other people took it over, and it kept going in the Carolinas, I think, for a while, maybe another year, maybe another 18 months. My question is there any of that tape available that wasn't shown here in the New York area?
You know, that I don't know.
I did see a couple of shows because they had Lou Thez doing color with Ron Martinez on one show. That is post New York.
Okay,
That's
then
definitely post New York. That particular show was.
yeah, I know we have a fair amount with Thez, because that was when we were putting together the 50th anniversary special. Looking for names. Lou Thez, you don't get much bigger than that. So I mean, I'm going to say yes. I'm not like a huge expert on Eddie Einhorn's IWA, unfortunately.
Who is? Who? There's the thing, and I don't mean this facetiously. Who's left? I mean,
Right.
who can look at that and pinpoint, well, this was from the latter point, this was from the beginning. The only thing you notice is Jack Reynolds stopped showing up.
Right.
And he stopped showing up because he eventually got hired by the WWF. I think Vince turned around and hired people just to keep him from working with. No, excuse me, I'm conflating it. Remember Pro Wrestling USA?
Oh, of course.
The ill-fated attempt to merge the AWA, NWA, and some other minors. Well, Jack Reynolds was the original host of that show, and then a couple months goes by, and all of a sudden he shows up in the WWF. So money talks,
Always does.
I don't know if Vince actually wanted to hire a lot of these people or just wanted to, thwart the competition, because sometimes it looked that way. I mean, he hired away people like Ken Resnick and Gene Okerlund. That was a famous one, of course.
Right.
And just you look at the announcing team, they all work somewhere. Even put Ron Trongard after a while.
Tony Schiavone was there for the cup of
Yes,
coffee.
he was. Yeah. I think he was working in the tape library, if I'm not mistaken. And he did some on-camera work. But yeah, Vince was hiring anybody that he thought was worth pilfering from the other federations. That's the way it worked back then.
I mean, he's not solely the only one guilty of that, I should say. Crockett had plenty of people under contract that you never saw.
So anyway, it's a great website, a great app. The app is really cool. Everything about it, I've just had so much fun with it. Tell our listeners where they can find it, how it operates. It is a subscription
correct
thing.
And
but just give them the whole tour about, how they can get involved with it.
Well, I did bug their hosting platform above us, so I got a discount code just for your show here. So it's called Ultimate Classic Wrestling. You can watch it on Roku, Amazon Prime, Apple TV or iOS devices, Android, and online at classicwrestling.net. If you use code SLAM25, you'll get 25% off your first bill. So if you subscribe for a month, you get 25% off that, or the year. Year's the better deal, but not everyone's got. I think it's $49.99 a year. So not everyone has that. So classicwrestling.net is the easiest place to start. And if you have something that streams channels, we're probably on it.
Yeah, I look at it on Roku.
Yeah.
That's the way I do it. And I didn't know it was on Amazon Prime. It's interesting.
Oh, yes, sir. Fire TV, I should say.
Amazon
so like if you have like an Amazon Fire
Oh,
Stick or something like that.
It's an app that you use,
Correct.
right? Exactly.
And we do some stuff on DVD with Joe Dombrowski. So if you're a physical media type guy, prowrestlinglibrary.com. And Joe's got a lot of, he's got his own good stuff too. He's, a little newer than us, but no shortage of great content. And he's a great guy. I couldn't put him over enough.
That's awesome. I had no idea. So that's I know people who insist on DVDs. They just insist.
People like them.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
they
very
do.
surprised. I thought it was a dead medium, and then we started dealing with Joe when we did our Von Erich special. He was like, "Yeah, do it on DVD," and I'm like, "That's no one's gonna buy it." And it was the most money we had ever made, so I was like, "All right, we're with you now." So we do a lot on DVD with him.
It must be strange because I invested in one of the finest TVs you can buy. I will say it this way. I mean, seriously, it drops a lot of coin on it.
Right.
Yet it's connected to a traditional DVD player too. I just like DVDs. I can't. Once in a while, you're looking for something obscuro, right?
Right.
You can't find it anywhere else. And here it is on DVD. I'm going to buy the DVD. I'm going to go home and watch it. It's just convenience for me because I have oddball taste. It took me 3 years to find a DVD of Harry and Tonto with Art Carney from 1974. But there it was on DVD. It's not streaming anywhere.
Right.
So this is how I have to watch it. Sometimes that's the case.
Right. And plus, you have it for good. If it was on, Netflix, maybe they take it down next month and you get out of luck again. But if you have it on DVD, they'll never take it away from you.
That is the thing. As much as I like streaming video, Netflix, Monty Python was on for 2 years. Mm-hmm. I'm the hugest Monty Python fan in the world. One day it's off, gone. They just they ended the contract and all this stuff was taken off. Now I see it's on Amazon Prime, but it's you have to pay, you have to purchase it again. So I'm like, oh man, for 2 years at least everybody got to see Monty Python on Netflix, and now it's off of there. So you never know what they're going to pull and what they're going to put on. It's it is what it is in terms of catch as catch can, shall we say? Use a wrestling term.
Again, not being from the TV business or entertainment or whatever I should say. So like when I put something up, unless I have a legal reason where I have to take something down, it stays up and I put up new stuff every week. But if you see something you like, you don't have to panic. It'll be there as long as I'm alive and allowed to keep it there.
Well, all I know is you have Ghoulish Welch stuff, and I want to see George Ghoulish. I have
only guy in the history of the world that have said that sentence.
No, I'm serious. I have seen him twice, and I'll tell you a secret. You know who I saw him? Who showed me George Ghoulish for the first time? Jerry Lawler.
Really?
I am at Jerry Lawler's house. And, it was before a show. I was in town to cover an event. He said, here, I'll pop in a DVD or VHS back then, 91. And I go, ooh. I'm like, this guy, who's that? He goes, oh, that's George Ghoulish. I went, oh, so the rumors were true. Because I'd never seen him. Territories, sometimes you have to wait a decade or two to see these guys. And George was a really good, for a wrestler, he made a great color commentator. We'll put it that way. He was just, my gosh. Oh my gosh.
He was
Daddy's boy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but you never saw him because he never worked anywhere else, as far as I know. I mean,
but you know what? He teamed with Bobby Eaton for a while.
Well, Bobby Eaton could make me look good,
That's it. Yeah, you could have a world championship match with a broomstick, right?
Right.
He could do that. What are some of your favorite stuff that you've uncovered as you're, I guess, assembling these videos? Is there anything that's caught your eye to go, man, that was great, and I never saw it before? What surprised you about the collection?
The biggest moment of my life / career, quote unquote career, Rick Rude versus Honky Tonk Man in IWCCW. For decades, people believed Mario hyped it up for months and it never happened. It was even on our Wikipedia. It might still be. But yeah, people claimed it just never happened. And I had like vague recollections of as a child of seeing it, but I could have been wrong. But we found the tape, and just finally seeing that blew my mind.
It did happen.
Yeah, it did happen. And it's up now, you can watch it. But
you're opening my eyes too. I never thought they actually went through with it.
Exactly.
Because they ran my friend Bill Apter, they ran that promo for months, if not years. I mean,
years, definitely years.
Yeah, and they finally follow through. So I will not ask you the outcome of the match because I want to find it and experience it for myself. Is it? Let's put it this way: is it worth the wait?
I enjoyed it. I will say I enjoyed it. It wasn't a 20-minute,
classic, right?
Exactly, but it was for what it was. It's as good as it was going to get.
Where did it take place? Was it
Staten Island?
That's right. He was running Staten Island a lot in those days. That's right. And those cars went over there too. They're very popular in Staten Island.
Yeah, and he always had a good, good team with him. Putski was there a lot. Atlas.
Putski Jr.
Yep.
or Scott Putski. Hey, listen, when you look back at the legacy of Savoldi's promotion, it went through phases. A lot of announcers and a lot of wrestlers. But at one point, you had Kevin Sullivan and his Army of Darkness here in the East when he was still in Florida, I think, at that point.
Oh, yeah.
There was a Paul Heyman era where he was booking for a while. People forget
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And there's just so many different phases to then, the Kevin Von Erich thing when it became IWCCW. I will never understand the business agreement, but I will say that he got the theme song anyway.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but reading the actual contract on the formation of IWCCW, we probably own a lot more than we agree we own, but it's what it is. It's not worth fighting anyone. But it's very funny.
You know what? Things happen sometimes, and they're not really followed through. Like you think they're going to be followed through, and I cast no aspersions. It was just a name change after a while.
Yeah. Yeah, once Kevin left, I mean, there was no real semblance of...
Yeah, but you got that cool theme song. So
yeah, absolutely.
And you perpetuated it, whereas, Texas Wrestling became the USWA, and that went away. At least you had that link to history here on the East Coast.
Yeah, and actually, you could trace World Class to Gino Caruso's East Coast Pro Wrestling, who's still active. There was a somewhat direct lineage between the two titles.
Well, I'll tell you what. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, I used to really enjoy coming to anything that Mario promoted, and I would travel 2-3 states sometimes, and I would still show up, and I always had a blast, and, great memories. I got to interview Joe McHugh on one of the shows. That I tell people that was a career highlight for me.
I believe it.
Here's how it happened. Mario says, Bob, you want to do some interviews? I said, whatever you like. He goes, how about you interview Joe? I go, oh, Joe Savoldi? He goes, no. Joe McHugh was standing right there. I went, Joe McHugh, really? He said, yeah. He said, he doesn't remember ever being interviewed on television. And I went, wow. I didn't need notes. I just, it was so much fun talking to him. I cannot tell you, that's the voice of my youth right there, man. It was just
It'd be like someone today interviewing out Howard Finkel or something. It's just that kind of,
And I got to interview Greg the Hammer Valentine, Tony Atlas numerous times, Rocky Jones. But just go down the list of who was on. I won the center ring interview with Nurse Goodbody, and what was it,
Nurse Vanessa? Yeah.
Nurse
Lovely
Vanessa,
lady.
right?
Yeah.
And what was the doc's name?
Dr. Feelgood.
Dr. Feelgood. Yeah. Can I tell you a secret about that one? I forget who was directing. This is
probably Tommy. Either Tommy or Tony Rumble.
Well, it wasn't Tony. Tony wasn't around at this point. But I'm doing this interview, and I'm going, I don't think you're a real doctor. It was one of those deals. And she's going, yes, he is. Yes. And I got the director in my headphone. He goes, I don't know if I should say this, but it was like, he's like, this is awful. We got to cut. Just get him out of the ring, please. I don't know if he was just saying it to himself or directing me at that point. I didn't know.
Right,
but I followed through with the thing.
I'd almost guarantee it was Tommy with that input.
Only you would know if the thing actually aired, because I don't know. I never got a chance to see it. Maybe he just scrapped it or whatever, but he just thought it wasn't going well.
I haven't seen it. I found you. I sent you a picture of you interviewing the Brooklyn Brawler for an inordinately long time.
That's a famous one because he snatched the mic from my hand and it came loose from the cord, the cable.
Right.
So I had to bend over and pick up the cable. It only took about a second, but it just, he was just, I want some competition, I believe.
Exactly, yeah.
And he was playing rough guy. And hey, Steve Lombardi is a big part of wrestling history. So
absolutely.
I just really, really, that was the beautiful part about those taping. I never knew what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Bob, go interview this guy. Bob, do that. Bob, do this. And, Abner was on the show a lot. George Napolitano was on the show for quite a bit. I mean, Mario was very generous and gracious with his time and letting the magazines in at a time when, WWF wasn't letting anybody in.
Oh, yeah.
So he had many of the same stars between contracts, and it was always a plus for us because we could get, the rest would pose backstage. It would be just a very fun atmosphere for us because it was like the pressure was off.
Yeah, I mean, Mario is an exceptionally kind man. I don't think I could ever put into words what a generous and great human he is. He's given me so many opportunities in my life. I call him Dad. He knows that.
Yeah.
He's just a great man. But yeah,
even back then, he tried to pay me once, and I wouldn't accept it because it's like, no, I'm here for PWI. I kept telling him. He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I am paid to be here through my company. They gave me expense money. They pay for my mileage. The film that I shot, I would take pictures there too.
Mhm.
Everything is for PWI. So the fact that I'm sitting down, you're helping us out. So no, in no way." I said, "Give this to the boys." I said, give it to somebody else because I didn't need it, and I didn't need it.
Right.
That's the kind of guy he is.
Oh yeah, anyone who ever, as soon as you walk in the door, you got your money in an envelope. Like it wasn't, I'll get you after, and you'd take off. Of course, he'd ask you to drive from New Jersey to Maine for $20, but you can bet your life there's a $20 bill when you walk through the door.
But I will say, Tony Atlas holds Mario in the very, very highest esteem. I just he used to talk glowingly about how much fun he had at a time when he really needed to work.
Yeah, and Mario he begged Vince to take him in when he did that Saba Simba thing he was doing there for a while.
Right.
That was, Mario calling in favors he probably didn't have,
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I know it helped Tony out at a point where he needed it. And I think Tony's a great guy. I always got along great with him. He was very accommodating. I had a rule back then. It was still the ass end of the kayfabe era when I was working. The very end of it.
Right.
And I would not go into the locker room unless invited. I wouldn't. Because I had worked with the Jarretts for a while, in Memphis or covered their shows. And I actually walked into a booking meeting and they looked at me like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" It's like everything was still serious, closed door kayfabe back then. And I don't know what organizations felt that way and which one didn't. So I wouldn't come in, but Tony, he sees me, he goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to go sit at the table." He goes, No, come back with us back here. Have a good time. So then I go in. Once I'm invited, I would go backstage. That was my rule.
Right.
And modern guys like Brian Arsalma said, no, you should have ingratiated yourself with the boys. I think if you look back at the passage of time, they didn't want interlopers in locker rooms in the kayfabe era. They just didn't. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mike Shields, he had started as a photographer in Memphis, and he told me this. I thought it was a riot. When he first started photographing, he wasn't really allowed in the locker room. And whenever he'd walk in, someone would yell kayfabe. He had no idea what that meant, but he figured out after a while that's what people yelled when Mike Shields was coming. So after a while, he began knocking on the door of the locker room and would yell in kayfabe and then walk in so people would know to kayfabe him. But like he announced it himself, and I thought that was hilarious.
That is funny. And when you mentioned to me when we were talking about doing this interview, you mentioned Mike Shields, and I didn't know it was the Mike Shields.
Yeah, no, that's what blew my mind. Because when I started with Mario, well, initially I'd reached out to Mario about producing a documentary on ICW, IWCCW, which I'd still like to do if I ever had any amount of free time. I can't remember what happened. Their graphics guy disappeared, and I was like, well, I can help you. And Mario was like, well, all right, email the pictures to Mike. And he sent me the email, Mike Shields, blah, 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 at gmail.com. I'm like, is that the Mike Shields? Because that was like, I'm a production dork. I was never going to be Hulk Hogan, but I could have been Mickey Grant or Mike Shields, Mm-hmm. Mike's like the name. He invented the vignette. He's the best of the best. So yeah, that one, I marked out hard for that. I was bugging him every day on emails. Well, tell me about this. Tell me, how do you do this?
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the greats.
The Mike Shields, that impresses me because, as like I said, you mentioned you'd had some dealings with him, and I didn't realize it was still that one. I mean, that's had to be a real feather in your cap to work with somebody like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he should be doing my job, and he'd be doing it a lot better. It's a shame he passed so young. We were working on, he didn't sell anything. We were working on, I can't remember the exact days of the week, but we were working on a show like Thursday. Fridays, like, I'm not feeling too good. And he was dead Saturday morning. It was just out of nowhere.
Oh, man. I'm sorry to hear that. I had no idea. Oh, man.
Yeah.
He's got to he has a big piece of wrestling history. You know, he really made history in his behind the scenes efforts in pro wrestling. There's no question about that.
Absolutely. I mean, Eric Bischoff puts him over as, the guy who taught him how to do television. But he left me a hard drive with all of his photos on it, all the ones he took from Memphis in the early 70s and everything. Those are some incredible. I'd love to do a coffee table book or something someday.
Well, you know how I know how people hold others in esteem in the wrestling business. When you get mentioned on camera and nobody knows who you are.
Right.
And he used to mention Mike Shields all the time in the AWA show.
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, Lee Marshall used to put him up, Mike Shields in the truck, like every pay-per-view, which was great.
Yeah. Oh, there's somebody else we missed too, Lee Marshall. What a voice. The legitimate Tony the Tiger, by the way.
Yes, I did know that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little trivia. Shoot, we're doing a trivia contest coming up, and I could have used that. Now I just said it. Damn it!
Didn't he do the live version of American Gladiators too?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had his fingers in a lot of pies back then. Just an amazing baritone voice. Just really, really distinctive. I mean, and he was fine in WCW too. In fact, WCW became AWA Light after a while because you had Zbyszko. You had a lot of the announcers were working, in the early days of WCW. So that was really something. But you know what else is really something? The work you guys are doing on that network. Again, it's called Ultimate Classic Wrestling. I'm looking at Global. If anybody missed Global back in the days when it was on every day on ESPN. You also have the WWA, Dick the Bruiser's people, on there, and some more modern stuff. I know. So it isn't all ancient. You had some more recent wrestling leagues.
Yeah, a lot of that was from Joe Dombrowski. Again, I'm not a huge fan of modern stuff, but I know a name when I hear one. So we had, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, guys like that. I'm like, that'll move the needle. I know those guys.
Yeah, people want to see them in their youth. They do. I remember seeing AJ on a show called, I don't know how this happened. I'm living in Queens, New York, and our cable system put on this weird ass Georgia independent station in the overnights. I don't know why. It just showed up. I think it was on public access. They just threw this on there, and it was about a year they had this network on, and they had NWA Wildside on this network.
Oh, Bill Barron's show.
Yeah, and they had Iceberg Slim and all those guys, and young AJ Styles with the short hair. And he was kind of presented as the star of the show back then. And it was kind of sad because they had production, they had some good young talent, but it looked like they were wrestling literally in front of 12 people. It just looked like that on television.
Yeah.
And
it was a tough era,
But you got to start somewhere. Right. And I'm sure people would want to see those early appearances by guys like Samoa and AJ. There's no question about that.
Yeah, that's why I was excited when we made a deal with Dennis Coraluzzo's son and hunted down Dennis's personal tapes that got, stolen by Gino Caruso, then sold to a third party. That was a big to-do. But Dennis's tapes, to me, just of the age I am, finding Dennis's stuff was great because it was, guys that were Vince's guys, 10 years later, which, it was just exciting for me to see all those, Rick Ratchet and all those Jersey guys.
But, also on the network are documentaries like Card Subject to Change, which is one of my personal favorites. It's on the network. There's also some Florida wrestling specials on there.
Yep.
Which I had seen in the past. I was glad to see those revived. Those are actually really good.
Yeah.
Florida wrestling was great, and there's not a lot of tape for that stuff.
Right. The territory got sold 300%. So there's a lot of people that own rights to Florida outside of, I believe, WWE and made a deal with Dusty. But Mike Graham owned some. Pat Tanaka's dad owned some. And it got sold to various parties. So there's more Florida out there outside of, WWE's jurisdiction. So we're able to get a hold of some of that, at least to distribute.
Not bad, though. Yeah, I mean, people will really enjoy Florida. I mean, Florida was a lot of fun.
Florida was probably the best of the territories.
It's hard to argue with that, particularly when Dusty was still there. I mean, it was just red blazing hot. They had Kevin Sullivan's art. We had Darkness, Mike Graham. I think Young Magnum was in there for a while. The Wyndhams, including Dad, but Latchback Mulligan. It just a lot of talent and a lot of great angles. I mean, just unreal angles.
Right.
They were really creative. Really, Freebirds were there. I mean, just keep going down the list. I mean, anybody who was anybody worked Florida.
Right. It was, like a diet ECW or a less silly Memphis. It was just really brutal and gritty. It was,
It
Brutal
was
and gritty. Yeah.
brutal and pretty. Yes.
Brutal and gritty. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. One of my favorite Florida moments that I ever saw. For some reason, Soli wasn't there, and the commentators were Coach John Heath and Buddy Colt, two straight-laced guys, as far as you could get straight-laced. And they're commentating on a six-man match with the Sullivan and his Army of Darkness is brutalizing three preliminary guys. And they're trying to call it like it's a sport, and it's just not working. Oh, he picked up a flashlight, buddy. It just didn't work, but it was beautiful in the art.
Right.
Because it was so absurd that it was like fantastic. I don't know how else to put it. It was just a great moment for me on TV wrestling.
Oh,
Two straight-laced older guys trying to describe, Mark Lewin throwing somebody over a bank of chairs. It was just great.
Oh, I can one up you there. We got so Victor Quinones had some of the IWA Japan footage, the pre-95 or 96. So we got one of the shows, Duel of the Wilds, which was one of those bloody deathmatch tournaments with Mike Mittman on the call.
You're kidding.
Yeah, and it's great because Mike's always good, but he's calling it like it's, Bruno at the Spectrum and not, an exploding barbed wire death match, and it's so fish out of water, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
I thoroughly enjoyed having you here, and also the network Ultimate Classic Wrestling, folks. I'm going to hype this to the hills. People our age need this stuff. We really need it. It's a rainy night. The baseball game's rained out. You're going to want to watch some of this really classic wrestling footage in its original formats. It's awesome, man. It really is.
Thank you.
I'm not saying it because Mara is involved and he's a friend of mine. I'm just saying it because it's really good. And
thank you very much.
And we need it. We need it. And that's why I wanted to hype it. It's been a long time getting you on here because we had some bumps in the road. And I'm also still got my fingers crossed that maybe someday we can convince Mario to grab a microphone or something and spend 15 minutes on the show here just to say hi and tell him how much I appreciate it.
I think we can make that happen. He's like I said, he's still an active guy. 82, you can't slow him down.
I couldn't believe when in Albany a few months ago when we were there, first of all, he treated me like his long lost son. That's what a nice guy he is.
He is.
And secondly, he had story after story after story after story. And his brain was just perfect. He remembered everything.
Oh, that's the greatest. Every day I'm treated to a 1 hour shoot interview on something. Vince Sr., Willie Gilzenberg, running the Meadowlands. Because Mario, he loves to, all the old guys love to talk, but Mario, he's like the Forrest Gump of wrestling. He was everywhere, knew everyone. He's telling me stories about going to Gorgeous George's house when he was a kid and just all this.
Well, how many phases did the whole Savoldi family have? I mean, between promotion and workers, and you just go down the line. It's underrated. There's got to be a book in this somewhere. There's got to be a book.
Mario's working with an agent on, I believe they were shooting on a docu-series. I'm not sure what they're selling the idea of the Savoldi story. I'm not sure what form it'll eventually take, but Mario does have an agent on that. So here's hoping.
I mean, the older Savoldis were major stars. Everybody got involved. The family was involved, and it was a unique situation, a unique setup. And I never had more fun in the wrestling business. I'm telling you, just hanging out with those people was just a stone cold blast, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. It was just great.
Everyone in that family is exceptionally kind, even the wives.
It's astounding how nice they are.
Yeah.
The only time I ever had a problem, I think it was Tommy.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
No, it wasn't really a problem. I'm taking pictures at ringside one time. I forget who the match was, but somebody got thrown out of the ring, and I'm down on the apron changing film. What you do is you scrunch down. Bill Afton told me everything I know about doing ringside after talk. So I'm down scrunching. And the guy, I forget who got thrown out, but he saw me and went over me. He managed to miss me.
Right.
Tommy goes, I'm going back. And he goes, you got too close. You shouldn't get that close. And I went, yes, I realize that, sir. I just, it caught me by, I had my head down. I shouldn't have had my head down, and I was, messing with my equipment. Well, don't do that, and I don't blame him. He just,
if that's all you got, you must have been on an off day. Tommy he could light you up.
Yeah, he could. He's legendary for that. I don't even have to repeat what you're saying because it's like, well, you need a policeman.
Right. Like, I got one show. I don't know what's going on, but you can hear he's refereeing and he's on mic the whole time. And you can just hear him like, work the camera, not the crowd, you stupid son of a bitch. this is 64 stations we're going, just berating the talent,
Wow.
Yeah. But it's Tommy, and everyone loved him for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We didn't know his name. Me and the staffers did not know Tommy's name until just recently.
No,
For some reason, we never caught his name. I remember in the office going, "Who's that? He's got to be a Savoldi." He said, "Yeah." What's his name? And we're like, "Oh shoot!" Apter must have known. Apter must not have been in the office at that point. But
Well, he used to use his shoot name on TV, so it didn't.
What was the thing on television?
Tommy Fornini.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, because you couldn't have Tom Savoldi reffing Joe Savoldi's match. So obviously, doesn't look good.
That's true. Now, Joe Savoldi was the younger Joe Savoldi was quite a talent. I thought he was really, really good.
He was my favorite wrestler as a kid. Like, it's why I'm here, literally.
The younger Savoldi. Savoldi.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I saw one of the matches I called was with Flex Lavender, and it was a great match.
Joe was great.
He was great. He could do anything.
Oh, he's fantastic. Yeah, honestly, at least once a week I get an email like, hey, Joe was my favorite wrestler as a kid. Especially out of Puerto Rico. He seems to be over down there still.
Well, I will say also he toured. He wasn't just in ICW. I remember seeing his name on posters and other. I think he went down south for a little while. And
Bill Watts had him a bit. He was in Florida,
all over the country. I think. Yep. Yeah.
Portland. He was tag champs up in Portland.
Is that right? Now that I didn't know.
Yeah, about 90, 91 maybe, or 90, I think, 89. No, I was gonna say, ICW gets a hard time that Joe was on top so often, but like, who was more over? Like, literally, like, if Atlas wasn't there, there was no bigger name in ICW than Joe Savoldi. Like, no matter how you cut it.
But there's the thing: he was legit over. It wasn't
exactly
a pushover,
right,
so to speak.
Yeah,
it wasn't just because he got a push that people took to him. He took them because he was good. He was a good-looking guy too.
Well, definitely, and especially like again as me being the child that liked Joe Savoldi. Like, Ultimate Warrior never came to my town, but Joe Savoldi did. Like that meant a lot to me.
Nah, he's a good worker. Just
absolutely.
Very underrated because of circumstances only.
Right.
That's the way I'll put it.
Yeah,
because everybody knew he was part of the family, and the people looking for excuse to criticize anybody. I thought he was fine and would have made it anywhere, and he did.
Yeah,
so watch proof's in the pudding.
If his first match was Bill Watts, I think it's the Libyan as his opponent. Within 5 minutes, the crowd's chanting "Go Joe, go!" Like, he was over. He was talented,
He was great. He was great when he got angry.
Yeah,
nicest guy in the world. Smile and shake hands with the fans, but get him angry, get him pissed in the ring, he would turn into a different wrestler. That's one of the things that I liked about him too.
Yeah,
and he did it subtly. It wasn't like over the top like the Hogan shake.
Right. No, it was like Lawler, just strapped down. Now it's
right.
On,
More like Lawler. That's a good one. That's a good comparison. But there's nothing that can compare to the Ultimate Classic Wrestling Network. I want you all to go check it out. And we've been really, really fortunate to have Daniel Archambeault-May as our guest. Let me try it again.
You got
Daniel Archambeault-May.
Thank you.
Good. I mean, better.
I pronounce it one way. My wife pronounces a different one. My dad said it different. It's
a great name. Like I said, my name is Bob Smith. You have this great exotic name. You know what it's like going through life with a name this plain? Hey, Bill, how are you? When you have a plain name, nobody remembers your name.
Yeah, but you've never had to call your insurance company and Daniel Archambeault, A-R-C-A.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But I also have to check into hotels.
True.
Bob Smith, huh, fella? Mm-hmm. Really? Mm-hmm. Remember, they give you the side eye. He's just here to have some fun, which is not the case.
You use the middle initial. That sounds more official. Bob E. Smith or whatever the case may be.
It's C in my case.
Bob C. Smith. Yeah, that works.
I was a blues singer on the road. And I did not use this name. My father's middle name was Charles, or my father's name was Charles. I used it as my stage name, Robert Charles.
Oh, I see.
And that worked. It worked quite well. Until I find out 5 years into my career, there's a guy named Bobby Charles who wrote "See You Later, Alligator" and is a great New Orleans songwriter. And I couldn't use that name. I wanted to use Bobby Charles, but there was another one.
Right.
So I changed it to Robert and changed the spelling of Charles, and the rest is obscurity history. No, I did good. I made 4 albums and toured the whole country. So
excellent.
Played Chicago Blues Festival. Was on the House of Blues radio hour with Dan Aykroyd.
Oh,
I
neat.
did it for real, man. I had a real music career, but
That's
now
cool.
I'm too old.
Well,
It's just, my time is come and gone.
you got to upload it on your YouTube or anything? Where
All
can
my
we hear
music,
Bob Smith's greatest hits?
all my music, all Robert Charles music is on YouTube and also Amazon and Spotify.
Well, there you go.
It will be there forever because there's no reason to take it down.
Right. You don't want to
So
miss
if
out on
anybody
that.
wants to hear, I never mentioned that on the show either. All my music is on Amazon and Spotify. Just spell Charles, Charels, and it's all streamable and available to hear.
And we'll put a link up on the screen, right, Bob?
No, I try to avoid it, at least on this show. I have another
enough.
podcast called the Outdated Entertainment Hour. There I talk about a little bit. I've had other blues musicians that were on my records come on and talk about it. But here it's just out of place.
Fair enough.
Well,
Well, I'm glad I gave you a reason to put it out there.
Well, thank you very much. Maybe I'll get another royalty out there somewhere.
There you
You
go.
know the funny part about putting records out? The records came out in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? Every year and a half, 2 years, I get a check in the mail from ASCAP.
Right.
And it's sizable. And that's the amazing. It's just royalties from accumulated plays on the internet. And I'm like, wow, this is a racket. I
Right,
make more money now than I did when I was working. I just don't understand how this stuff works sometimes.
See, that's funny. I have a songwriting credit on a friend's album. Like, I'm like 1/3 of a credit on one song.
Mhm.
So, like, every year I get like a check for like 3 cents or something. And I'm like,
Oh,
this
you
is-
get those 3-cent checks.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, I
Wow.
mean, this isn't even worth cashing. It just looks cool to get,
Oh, I knew somebody who was a bookkeeper and an accountant for some famous musicians, and they get stacks of 3-cent checks.
Yeah. It's
I
ridiculous.
guess
Like, what do you do with it?
somebody-
It's not worth the trip to the bank. It's not even worth writing your name on.
It costs more to put it in an envelope. And
Right.
The paper's worth more than a check is. It's crazy, but that's how they do it,
Right.
or always did do it anyway. Well, as we sit here counting our pennies, folks, I just want to say thanks again to Daniel.
Oh, thank you, Bob.
Come back soon. We got
Anytime. Happy to be here.
somebody who knows wrestling like you do is a great guest on our show. We'd like to talk to you again. How about that?
Anytime you want me, Bob, I'll be here.
You got it, folks.
Try and
once
bring the old
again-
man with me next time.
Yeah, we're going to try to get Mary on this show for sure.
Definitely.
Daniel Archambeault-May.
And
Thank
Bob
you
Smith.
again.
Anytime. Thank you, Bob.
Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. Well, that about puts a nice bow on another one for you here at the Outdated Wrestling Hour. I want to thank Joe Puccio. Write to us, outdatedwrestling@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook. I'm the only Bob Smith that's singing with BB King. Just look up Bob Smith, and you'll see the pictures there. Our website, outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com. Listen to all of our shows free of charge. And you can also join our Outdated Wrestling Hour fan club. Learn all about it on the website, outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com. I am also Outdated Bob on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. We got to get it going. We got a lot of good stuff coming up in the coming weeks. I'm working feverishly, interview after interview. And I got to get to another one right now. I'm serious. So until next time, my name is Bob Smith. This is the Outdated Wrestling Hour. If you enjoy it, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and tell your friends to take a listen. We would really appreciate it. Until next time, in the words of Ringo Starr, peace and love, brothers and sisters. Peace and love.